Hello Magic players, this is Barry White from GeekNifty, Sacto Gamer on Twitter, talking about Modern Horizons. Unless you've been under a rock recently, you probably have heard about this set. It's 254 cards, including the 5 basic lands. It's going to have reprints of course, but unlike previous sets, all reprints in this one are from non-modern legal sets. That's because Modern Horizons is the first set Wizards has ever printed that's going directly into Modern, just circumventing Standard altogether. We've seen 2 of the new cards already in Cabal Therapist, which is essentially a Cabal Therapy with legs, and then Sarah the Benevolent Planeswalker. Actually, you know, that's Sarah. She makes Sarah Angels. She makes her ultimate is essentially Worship. They're both pretty damn good cards. But moving on to the actual reprints, I picked 45 sets. There are 45 sets. They're non-modern legal, and I picked 1 card from each set that I think Wizards might actually consider reprinting into Modern Horizons. So let's go ahead and take a look here. We have from the CORESET Counterspell, of course. It's very iconic. I mean, its entire breed is called Counterspell, whether that's a mono league or cancel or what have you. So that. And I say CORESET because, well, with the exception of Alpha and Beta, Limited, they're all reprint sets. But initially, this was an original card. So, yeah, Counterspell. I think Control players are going to really like seeing that. Moving on to Arabian Nights. A lot of good cards in this set, but a lot of them are also on the reserve list. So I just went ahead and went with Brass Man. It's a 1-drop, a 1/3 1-drop. Yeah, it doesn't untap. You do have to pay 1 during your untap phase to untap it, but you know, I still think this would see a lot of good play in today's Modern, if nothing else, just for being a 1/3 1-drop that can be played in any color. And Antiquities, I think we're going to see Mishra's Factory. Yeah, I know we have Mood Evolved and a bunch of other Manlands, but Mishra's Factory, the original Manland, still one of the best ones, partially because it can pump other assembly workers. It becomes an assembly worker and it can pump other assembly workers. So there is that. Add the card Greed, a black card draw enchantment. Lets you draw a card for every 2 life that you pay, along with a black whenever you do it. This was reprinted in Commander a little while back, so we've seen it in the new frame with new art, and I think it's good enough that it might as well be in Standard, or rather in Modern. Now from the dark, there's a couple good options on this one. I went with Gaia's Touch. It's a green enchantment, costs 2 green, lets you play an extra forest every turn, and then at some point, whenever you want to, you can also sacrifice it for 2 green, so you get a refund on that. I think a lot of elves and mono green and, you know, green X players would find this one useful. Fallen Empires, Hymn to Torak, probably one of the best discard spells in existence, and you know what, I would love to see this reprinted into Modern. Now yes, I know it's a random discard. Wizards is not that big these days on random discard, but random discard already exists in Modern, so I don't really see the harm in including this card. Moving on to Ice Age, we have Mishra's Bauble from Cold Snap. Now we can get Urza's Bauble from Ice Age. Essentially the same thing as Mishra's Bauble, 0-drop artifact, has a cantrip, but this one lets you look at 1 card from an opponent's hand, and you don't even have to have an opponent with any cards in their hand to do it. So, there you go. Homelands. Yeah, I know, bad set. Most cards are pretty bad as well. All the ones that are halfway decent either already exist in Modern or they're for some reason on the reserve list. But we're going to go with Headstone. It's Graveyard Hate. It's not the most efficient Graveyard Hate because it is black and 1 for just 1 card, but at least it cantrips, so it replaces itself. About the only card I can see really worthwhile in Homelands. Alliances, I know a lot of people want Force of Will. I just don't see that happening, so I'm going with Exile, the white and 2 instant that literally exiles an attacking creature, and then you, the caster, get to gain life based on that creature's toughness. Mirage, I'm thinking Cursed Totem. Be a good sideboard card. It's not that expensive to bring out. It shuts down a lot of problem cards that are on the board because it shuts off creature abilities requiring activation costs. That includes artifact creatures as well. In Visions, I'm thinking Helm of Awakening. It lets spells cost 1 generic mana less. I know you can say there's a lot of decks like Tron that don't really need the help. but it can make other decks a lot more efficient to play, and there's a other side to this coin. I'm going to get to that in a moment. But first, Weatherlight. I'm thinking Angelic Renewal. This was reprinted in one of the Masters sets. I believe, what was it, Eternal Masters, I think it was reprinted in. But, you know, it lets you bring a creature back that dies. And it's something that White does from time to time. On this one, it's, you know, it's on the board, so it's not a surprise when it happens. But I think it could be useful, especially in draft environments. From Tempest, I'm going for a bit of a reach here with Scroll Rack. It is a card that can be abused. It's a card that is worth a few pennies, but I think it's one that is not above the power level. It's near the top, but not above the power level of Modern, and I want to see what players are going to do with it. So from Stronghold, Wall of Blossoms, an 0/4 for green and 1, Defender of course, but when it comes into play, you can draw a card, and you know, it's kind of nice to be able to draw a card in any color, green as well. And it's also kind of nice to have something with a non-boltable butt. So there you go. Exodus. This is the other side of that Helm of Awakening coin that I talked about, where Helm of Awakening makes spells cost 1 generic less. Sphere, all spells cost 1 additional more. And you know what? I see a lot of different deck types wanting to experiment with this. See it as possibly a good sideboard card as well. And I think it has a place in Modern. Urza Saga, Goblin Lackey. I wouldn't be surprised if Wizards of the Coast decided to go tribal on a few things. So Goblin Lackey, which is a 1-drop, 1/1, but lets you bring a goblin from your hand into play whenever it connects to a player. So I think that would bring goblin decks, which are very popular, just not always very good. I think it would really bring it up a notch. From Urza's Legacy, Unearth. It's a graveyard card, lets you bring a creature with casting costs of 3 or less and put it directly into play. And we're talking about cards like, oh, I don't know, maybe Bob, that sends a die a lot. On top of that, it does have cycling, and yeah, I do think they're going to look at putting cycling into Modern Horizons. It would not surprise me one bit. From Urza's Destiny, we have Yavimaya Elder. Now when it dies, you can do a tutor for 2 basic lands and put them into your hand. It's a 2/1, so it could die easy. But for 2, you can sacrifice it and draw a card. So really it reads 2, sack, draw a card, find 2 lands. It's great card advantage. It's also a good ramp. Moving on to Mercadian Masks. I don't know, I think High Market might be good. I know a lot of people want Rashad Port to be reprinted. I really don't see that coming out into Modern. It was a bit of a nightmare back in Type 2, so I don't really see it being in Modern. But High Market has a chance, because it taps for a colorless, and you can sack a creature to gain life. So it becomes a sack outlet, it becomes a life gain outlet. It's something. From Nemesis, AK, Accumulated Knowledge. This was reprinted a few years ago in a dual deck, and I think it has promise in Modern. It lets you draw a card, but it's a cumulative effect. You get to draw extra cards for each AK in all graveyards. So even if your opponent has a few, it still multiplies. So from Prophecy, Prophecy was not a good set. Spore Frog, not a half bad card. It is 1-drop, 1/1 common, but you can sacrifice a creature to play Fog. It's a Fog Frog. I think that could be useful. From Invasion, I think this is where Wizards going to pander a little bit to the Commander players, because if they make it just for Modern players, they're really cutting out a bunch of their potential market. Captain Sisse would be a decent card, an okay card in Modern. Not great, but it would be amazing to see this reprinted for the Commander players, and I think this is a good opportunity for Wizards to go ahead and do that. Moving on to Plane Shift, Flame Tongue Kabu. This was a very competitive card way back in the day because, yeah, it's a 4-drop for 4/2, but it also deals 4 damage to a creature whenever it comes into play. So that's very aggressive. It's got a decent sized head on it, and I think it could have a chance to appear in some decks yet again. From Apocalypse, sticking with the Goblin Tribal idea, Goblin Ringleader, which is a 4-drop for 2/2 haste, and while that doesn't sound great, you do get to do a kind of a micro tutor, and you get to keep all goblins that you reveal out of the top 4 cards of your library. So that could be good. It can be an enabler, which is nice. Odyssey, I'm Pulling out Patron Wizard, mainly because I think, due to the popularity of Wizards lately, especially since the Dominaria set, Wizards might try to put Wizards into the into Modern Horizons as a tribal. So this would fit right in. From Torment, I'm thinking Cabal Ritual. Dark Ritual is great. I think it might be a little too efficient. So Cabal Ritual, it's a little less efficient to start because you have to pay 2 for 3 black, kind of like Desperate Ritual in red. But this one does have Threshold, where if you have Threshold, that is 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you can add 5 black instead. So it can be really powerful, especially later in games. And from Judgment, I'm thinking Mirari's Wake. It's a semi-chase card. It can be rather good. This might again be more for the Commander players than the Modern players, but I still think it might see some play. It gives you a Glorious Anthem effect for all your creatures, and then it also doubles your lands when they are tapped for mana. So I hear that's good. Now Onslaught, I'm thinking Astral Slide. You saw a couple of cards of cycling. There's a number of cards already in cycling in Modern, thanks to sets like those in the Amonkhet block. So Astral Slide was a very good deck type way back in the day, and Wizards might want to try to bring that back to further diversify the Modern field. Kind of tying in with that is Sign of Darkness from Legions. It is a cycling 6/6 trampler, and then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get to steal one of the creatures from their graveyard and use it as one of your own. So it can be rather strong. I know it costs a lot, but it can be rather strong, especially if you get in your graveyard and you can bring it out later with some sort of a reanimation effect. From Scourge, a little support for the burn players, the Sulfuric Vortex. This card sees play in Legacy, and it might as well see some play in Modern, so there's something for the burn players. Going to the beginner sets, which had a lot of reprints and a lot of awkward cards, not a lot of good cards. Breath of Life is one of the not so bad cards. It is a little more graveyard recursion in white, white and 3 to bring back a creature from your graveyard, and then you play it. It's traded as if it were just summoned, just brought into play. So there's that from Portal. From Portal Second Age, Goblin Warstrike might not be a bad idea. It's red direct damage, and it deals damage to a player based on the number of goblins you have. So it's a little later in the game. Your goblins aren't connecting anymore because your opponent has defenses you can't get around. Well, with this, you can get around it. Portal 3 Kingdoms, Imperial Edict is what I went for. A card like Imperial Seal or something might be really nice. I just don't see them reprinting that. So Imperial Edict, at the very least, your opponent gets to choose one of their creatures, and then it's destroyed. It's non-targeting on the creature, so it gets around hexproof and things like that. And it is spot removal, even if you don't get to necessarily choose the spot. It's something at least. From Starter, this started 1999, not started 2000. Started 2000, as far as I can tell, is completely reprints. So started in 1999, going with Dakmor Ghoul. Yeah, I know it's a expensive bear. 2/2 for 4, but at least when it comes into play, you get to drain your opponent for 2 and you gain 2, so at least there's that. Moving on to Conspiracy, Dak Faden is a very popular character, and I think he deserves to be in Modern, partially due to his popularity. People really like him, but it's a useful planeswalker. It's a 3 loyalty for 3. You can steal artifacts, you can draw 2 cards with them, then discard 2, so essentially a Faithless Looting type effect on that. And his ultimates, not half bad either, so that's really something to think about. Moving on to Conspiracy Take the Crown, Recruit of the Guard is a very good card. It lets you tutor for any creature with a toughness of 2 or less, and then put that right into your hand. Now this can be easily abused in Modern, but I kind of want to see that. Wizards might go out on a stretch and do that just to appease certain types of players. So who knows? Wizards of the Coast, I dare you, put it in. Moving on to the Commander sets, we have Acorn Catapult from the original Commander. Why? Because Mark Rosewater likes squirrels. A lot of players like squirrels. I don't see any reason other than Wizards just being full of themselves why they wouldn't put a card like this or this specific card in. It's fun, it's silly, and you gotta have a little levity in your game from time to time. Commander 2013, Baleful Strix, I think, is a very strong contender to be included in Modern Horizons. 1/1 Flying Death Touch, it replaces itself. Yeah, it can be kind of a pain in the butt to deal with, but yeah, deal with it. You just do. I really want to see this in Modern. I think it would see a lot of play. Commander 2014, Masterwork of Ingenuity, which is essentially a clone for equipment. It's a 1-drop at that. And I think it'd just be very, very useful. I want to see this in Modern. I think Wizards should definitely give it a look. Commander 2015, Fiery Confluence is a very strong contender here. Yeah, it is a very versatile burn spell. It's a 4-drop with 3 different modes, and you get to choose 3, and you can double up or triple up on those modes if you so choose. Very versatile, very strong. Very much think that Wizards should put this in Modern Horizons. Moving on to Commander 2016, we have Parting Thoughts, which is black and 2. You get to destroy a creature, so you get that spot removal, but you also get to draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the number of counters on that creature. So this punishes Simic players. This punishes, well, basically any creature that, any player who plays creature counters, and you can also play this on your own as well and take advantage of that. Moving on to Commander 2017, we have Heirloom Blade. This plays right into the Tribal Thoughts. It's equipment, 3 to play, 1 to equip, creature gets +3/+1. Then when that creature dies, you can reveal the top card of your library until you reveal a creature that matches the creature type, whether that's Goblin or Soldier or Wizard or Zombie or what have you. So that could find its way into Modern, maybe more Kitchen Table, but it'll find its way into Modern. Most recent Commander, Commander 2018, I know it was not exactly the strongest Commander set, but it did have some good cards. Turn Timber Sower is one of those. 3/3 for 3, Elf Druid. It really interacts with lands well. It gives you 0/1 green plant creature tokens whenever a land is put in the graveyard from anywhere, so that can include your hand or your graveyard. And you can sacrifice 3 creatures, including the Sower if you so choose, to bring a land into play from your grave or into your hand from your graveyard. So that's kind of fun. From Battle Bond, I think Arena Rector has a good chance, and I do believe this one would stay mythic. We're about to have a set with 30 some odd Planeswalkers in it, in addition to all the other Planeswalkers we already have. So that's a lot of Planeswalkers. Arena Rector plays specifically with Planeswalkers, letting you tutor for once. So I would be surprised if they wouldn't at least consider throwing the Rector into Modern Horizons. And finally, from the very disappointing Global series, the only card really worth mentioning is Ancestor Dragon. It's a 5/6 flyer for 6, but it has a lot of life gain capabilities, pairs well with things like a Johnny's Pridemate and what have you. So yeah, that's 45 sets, 45 cards I think you might see in Modern Horizons. I do have a few little honorable mentions. Talking about cycling, we might see a series of cycling lands, such as the ones from Onslaught or the ones from the Urza's block coming in just to play into that cycling theme a little bit more. And people want the fetches. They're not going to be reprinting the good fetches that people really want, but what they could do is they could reprint the allied fetches from Mirage. They're not nearly as good because the fetch lands themselves come into play tapped, and then you can go grab, you know, your Forester Plains or your Steam Vents or what have you. So it is a bit slower. You don't have to lose life, but it's just 1 life for the good ones. But this is one that can come in at uncommon and kind of lower the demand a little bit for the big boys. So yeah, there you go. That's what I have for you. I hope you've got some ideas brewing about what you might think would be in Modern Horizons. If you are thinking about that, go ahead and leave me a comment and let me know what cards you think Wizards might put into the set.